Like back in the day, my main thrust in life was trying to pursue music. The thing about being an artist is even artists that you might see on TV or you might be a fan and you might go to the shows and they're in some ways they have some level of fame or oftentimes those folks are from a financial standpoint are like really struggling. From musicians to actors, there's like the A-list people
Right.
who are actually doing very, very well. And then there's this other layer of people. In some ways, they're faking it until they make it.
And
And
they,
it's
they
just
fake too hard and suddenly they'll never make it.
100%
Yeah.
because the business model isn't very kind to the creators. It's kind to the market. That's true in a lot of different lanes.
It's universal. It's one of the reasons why I think a lot of people are very, I would say, what's the word? I don't want to call it reactionary toward AI, but I'm starting to wonder if it's becoming reactionary. But just in general, like the fear of the production of art in various forms becoming harder. Because one thing I do believe is that, like, for all the AI hype, the only place it's probably really going to do damage is to like the artists, musicians, etc. All the rest of the stuff, writers, all the rest of the stuff. I'm not super like if living through Y2K and the Wii and NFTs has taught me anything is that the next big technological thing is usually not the next big thing. But I also have seen the damage that AI generated media is already doing. I did a short video the other day. I had to cut parts of it because I was like, you know what, politically, this may be too spicy for me to put out there with my particular platform. There's like AI generated right wing media now.
Yes.
And I don't know how many of the people in the comment section are also AI, which is also a thing. But I know if I saw it, if it popped up on my screen, I'm a real person. Thus, it's doing something.
I mean, I could go on and on about AI. I do think that once technology exists, it exists. You can't put the
Yeah,
genie in the bottle.
true. I
So
agree.
we're living alongside AI, and that's a reality. And also, we're living under capitalism. So this technology is going to be leveraged by capital in ways that don't care about us. Like that's just a reality of all technologies,
Right.
right? It's not unique to AI, right?
Right.
And if they could find efficiencies, make certain workers obsolete using leveraging a technology, that's what they're going to do, right? That is what will happen, right? The things I think about is like, well, how can we leverage this technology since it exists? Because I don't want to fight with one hand behind my back, right? Like I don't want the techno-fascist overlords to be using AI and then I'm like holier than thou and I'm not going to leverage AI. What it's like it's like I'm
There's a
sure.
right. There's a master's tool argument, but I've also never 100% rocked with that particular axiom.
Yeah, I mean,
And YouTube is a master's tool.
to me, there's a slippery philosophical slope around the master's tool thing. It's like I'm speaking English.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like
There's a certain concession that we've made from jump. And
so it's like to me, it's what we're doing is there's trade-offs, right? I think what's healthy about that is like you should be asking yourself those questions, but you shouldn't assume there's some sort of purity around that. And then the other thing is like, how are you using the tool? Because you could use a tool for all types of nefarious reasons, or you could use a tool in constructive ways. So I just think, like, I appreciate the master's tools framework because we should be thoughtful
right.
about what we're doing and why we're doing it. But
There's a greater discussion there about that I've been focusing on a lot recently about kind of the it's mostly the online left. I find that this is not something I encounter in real life, and kind of this gap between ideological purity and pragmatism.
yeah,
But I want to circle back to that because I do want you to introduce yourself.
sure.
We just jump right in, which is dope. That's kind of how I like to do it. I'm not a real interviewer or podcast.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
just a dude that talks. So introduce yourself, introduce who you
Sure.
represent, et cetera, et cetera.
Sure. I'm Maurice Mitchell. I'm the National Director of the Working Families Party. The Working Families Party is a bottom-up, grassroots, independent, third-party movement that started it like 26 years ago, specifically as a response to the Democratic Party during the Clinton era, when they chose to do this thing called triangulation, where they were like, great, we're going to adopt a lot of right-wing ideas, especially around the economy and sort of neoliberal theories on the economy, and we'll retain some of the social rights rhetoric of the Democratic Party. Like that smushing together, it's like both like breaking apart the economic rights and social rights that used to be about basically labor and civil rights, that coalition breaking apart that philosophy and replacing the economic rights of neoliberalism, but keeping the social rights, right?
Right.
That's basically what happened. At that time, there were people who were horrified by this.
Yeah.
There were people in
They saw where we would end up.
yeah, they saw exactly where we've ended up today. Some of those people started the Working Families Party with some labor unions and grassroots organizations and leveraged this thing called fusion voting in New York State initially, and now we're in 14 states, so that we would be able to aggregate our voting power as a way to pull the entire political system closer to the interests of working people. So fast forward to today, we endorse close to 1,000 candidates. We have chapters in more than a dozen states. We have activists in every state. And we believe that we've kind of cornered the market on non-delusional third-party politics in the United States.
So and that's kind of why I've always really liked y'all in the way you in particular come off, because I'm in a unique position where I aspire to pretty radical politics. But I use that word aspire very intentionally because my aspirations don't match the reality I'm in, the reality I come from, the reality I've built for myself up until the last 5, 6 years, essentially, where I've developed much more politically to move further left. And what I personally believe is that I represent most people that consider themselves progressives that may have at one time considered themselves liberal. I had read, I don't know, Fanon in undergrad, but not like with an open heart, so to speak, just to pass a class, not
Yeah.
undergrad, grad school. And re-engaging with it recently, I'm like, oh no, he was there. And then like a mentor said, okay, now that you've got Fanon, here's some George Jackson. I'm like, oh shit, we're in there, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But I also know, and this is the thing, kind of going back to this purity versus pragmatism like conversation I've been trying to have on my channel. I've gotten some heat from it from my more radical and I would say some, not all. This is not a critique of everyone that critiques me. Some of the critiques I get from the left are people that are very online and are not really engaged in like practical political action. They're mostly in political, somebody called them one post, like political social clubs. Their organization is mostly just them hanging out with their like-minded friends,
Yes.
doing some stuff that's useful, but it's not very, there's no pathway to power through that type of action. But they have a lot of tweets. They have a whole lot of tweets.
Yeah.
Right? I recognize that I can't present George Jackson to people I graduated my HBCU with without like a whole lot of preamble. I've tried to make my work recently more about, okay, what does the midpoint between Barack Obama should run for a third term and George Jackson has all the answers look like? Like, what does that pathway look like? And maybe it looks like a couple of my videos. Maybe it would be good to hear from you. So I get like the radicals, they just have written me off, which is fine because like they're minimal part of my audience. But there's a chunk of my audience that when I start critiquing Barack Obama, which I'm about to do again, coming in a couple of days, hopefully.
Oh, listen, man. Look,
they get real mad at me. So like,
oh yeah, no, look, Black people are irrational when it comes to Barack Obama and his family. Period.
It's tough. It's tough.
There's an irrational defense of the Obamas, that family. When people are defending the Obamas, they aren't defending the actual people.
They're defending I call it the Black excellence myth. The Black excellence brunch crowd is who they belong to.
Yes.
And it's like, to critique the Obamas would also require to disabuse yourself of that imagery that we have been inundated with for a generation without even like can you give the most softball critique for those who might watch this to at least like start their
Sure.
pathway, you
Okay.
know?
Let me make an attempt. We all experienced 2008. Look, a lot of people did not think Obama had a chance of winning initially. I didn't think he had a chance initially. I was like a lot of black people. I had to wait until he won in Iowa. I had to wait until I saw a majority white state. I was like, oh, okay, because black people were operating on multiple levels. Not only do we vote on the values we believe in, we also have a consciousness that is keyed into what we think the majority white country we live in will accept.
That's real. That's a
And
really that's a great articulation of that. Like it's almost like a double consciousness element.
yes,
It's like
yes.
I know what I feel, but I also know what's possible.
Yeah, which is why when you poll black people on issues, we're always significantly more to the left
Right.
than any other people. But sometimes we vote in ways that might be considered slightly conservative, right?
Right.
Because there might be a in a primary somebody who's definitely the leftist, and then black people might choose the consensus, choice because we're operating with that double consciousness, right?
Right.
Like I felt it, the same feeling I feel it's irrational, but it's also real. When Ryan Coogler puts out a movie and it's number one, a part of me feels like our movie was
Right.
because
That's a win for us.
it's a win for us,
We on
right?
top right now. We up this particular month, this summer maybe. We
Right.
up.
I didn't make any money off that movie,
Mm.
but I feel connected to that win. It's a cultural win, whatever. I felt that feeling
Right.
when Barack Obama won.
Most of us did, definitely.
I remember the days and weeks and hours afterward, I would just look at a black person. We
It
would
was
nod. It wasn't the normal nod. It was a
right.
different.
It
I
was
would,
deep. It was full neck
oh,
extension. Yeah.
yo, a brother stopped me and he was like, "Yo, bro, we did it." That's all he said. A random dude was just like, "Yo, bro, we did it." I was like, "Yeah, bro." Right?
Yeah.
So I felt that. I felt something similar. Not the same thing, but something similar when Sinners, you
Mhm.
know, outperformed any of the industry's sort of projections for Sinners. I
Right.
feel that when I see people like the Williams sisters do their thing
Mhm.
unapologetically.
Right.
And when they get flack from it, they get flack because what the Williams sisters do, what Barack Obama did, not only did they win, but they win in this way where they don't bow their heads,
Yeah.
right?
There's no bashfulness about it.
They win unapologetically, which is like a crime in America,
Right.
right? Like America will allow you to win as a black person, but then
Yeah.
you also have to show deference
Right.
to
You got to
America,
be bashful about it.
right?
Like
And the
Muhammad
Williams
Ali is a great example. Like Muhammad won. It was like, yeah, of course I did.
Yep.
Look at me.
Muhammad Ali. So that is like, and if you remember when Barack Obama was the president of the United States, and a lot of the backlash he was getting was how cocky he was.
Yeah.
The president of the United States, right? So I felt all of that, right? And if we remember, and here's the thing about Barack Obama that some people may know, people at the time who came up with him as an organizer in Chicago, they would tell you he was an organizer. He, if not a leftist, he was around
Yeah.
those spaces. He truly was. And he was in relationship with actual people on the left, actual progressives. It wasn't irrational for people who were actually progressive to be like, yo, we might have something here.
Yeah.
Right? Now, what he chose to do, let's just look at his record, which is mixed,
Yeah.
right? But when people critique him, what they're critiquing are the things that he actually did. So he chose, when it came to his economic policy, to surround himself with Timothy Geithner and all of these folks who were operating with this very, very dated neoliberal. And when I say neoliberal, what I mean is these theories that the markets will just
Take
magically
care of it all.
sort things out, right?
Yeah.
That the government shouldn't intervene, right? That you should lean into austerity instead of investing in people, right? If anything, yes, save too big to fail banks, but don't save the
People.
families that
Yeah.
were hurt by those banks, right? That's the kind of the logic, right? He chose to surround himself with those people. And we could debate why, right? I remember one time very early in his administration, he said, people are concerned because I'm surrounding myself with these people from the Clinton era, whatever.
Right.
He's like, look, the change comes from me. I remember that so vividly. To me, that was
He was so good. He was
listen,
so good. And
listen.
I understand why. Like I compare it to getting, because I in this video I have coming up, I'm still kind of going at it with the more liberal parts of my audience who are, in my opinion, taking out their frustrations around Kamala on the wrong people, on the air quotes radical left,
Yep.
or on third party moderates,
Yep.
et cetera, instead of like the actual people at fault. And I compare it to like y'all kind of just want to get back with your ex that you know is not good for you. And like you felt that high, that contact high.
Yeah.
Because I remember when Kamala came out, like before Kamala was identified, I
Yeah.
had no confidence. I didn't think they were going to pick her, and I was like, "There's no way she's going to win." There's all these reasons why she's a horrible choice.
Yeah.
She came out, to give her credit. One, she came out with such energy that I was like, "Oh, maybe I'm wrong." And
Yep.
then the response I saw from people reminded me of the Obama era, and
Yes.
so then I got high for a second.
Yes. Yes.
And then to give her credit, she probably outperformed what was in the books for her,
Yeah.
and maybe could have done better had she not did what Obama did.
Yes.
Except
And
in
not surrounded herself
with
with all of those
establishment.
people. And these people, the crazy thing about these people is that they have driven either our economy or the Democratic Party coalition or whatever into defeat in different ways, multiple times, right? And they're able to come out of that unscathed, right? Even today, after that loss, those people who basically decided how the Harris campaign raised and spent more than $1 billion, they're not the ones who are accountable for the loss.
Right.
They're blaming the left, the boogeyman.
Right. The left. Oh, we were too woke. And we need a Joe Rogan.
Right.
And it's
Right.
like, no, you need.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing that you'll see is that people are looking for silver bullet diagnosis and silver bullet solutions, right? And politics is a rational marketplace that, especially left politics or Democratic Party politics, highly irrational marketplace. So after a loss, instead of having a sober analysis of what was happening, so you could get at the root of what you need to do, it's like whichever generally like white DC based or maybe New York based consultant, central left consultant with particular relationships with a particular set of donors,
Right.
puts something on paper. The sooner that person puts something on paper, the sooner the story of what happened and therefore what the solution is told, usually in Washington Post and New York Times op-eds. Whatever the reason was, we don't get to that. It becomes we need the Joe Rogan of the left, or we lost this because of trans people. And that becomes the narrative, right? And so with Barack Obama, the thing that I want people to note is that I take in critiques and they're helpful to me. I think I offer critiques. I actually think it's healthy if you actually care about a political project, a political actor, that you provide them with critiques. So I'm not hating. I'm not hating on the Obamas. I'm not hating. Look, I felt that thing in my heart. I wanted him to be the organizer because I'm an organizer that was able to, achieve this status. But we should account for what happened, especially because there may be another opportunity for somebody else who has a relationship to our movement or another Black person to be in those positions. And we want them to build on the good things and not make the same mistakes,
Yeah.
right? So this could be future looking. It's not
Yeah.
even about Obama,
Right.
right? And
We need
look,
to be able to, I'm sorry to cut you
yep,
off, but like
please.
this is the thing I've been focusing on is like you mentioned like the silver bullet, and it may be cynical of me, quasi-doomerist even, but I just don't think we're in a space to even hold a gun. As I said that in one of my last videos, we're not even in a position to hold a gun politically. Black people, let alone the left, depending on how you define that in America, the ideological like standards are so poor that if some charismatic figure, I see this guy popping off from New York who's a Democratic socialist, and I think that's
Zoran Mamdani, yes.
Norman Domney. But I also see what's happening to Brandon Johnson in Chicago, who ran as a
Yep.
socialist essentially,
Yep.
and that hasn't went too well. He doesn't seem to be convicted in his platform. I think more significantly, though, the people are not demanding the platform he ran on. Does that make sense?
So,
And so
so
it's
I
like if
mean,
we get
I could
another
say a lot.
Obama,
So let me
yeah, I'm
connect
sorry, I
Obama
tend to ramble. I apologize.
and Brandon, right? Obama built the Obama campaign actually built a social movement, a true social movement, a multiracial social movement that was an electoral movement, right? We hadn't seen a movement like that until the Bernie era and Trump era,
Right.
right? They're different types of movements, but that type of movement energy,
Yeah.
right? And you could say for a few weeks, maybe Kamala started to feel like that in some ways, right? Now, one of the strategic decisions that he made was to shut his movement down, right? And I could tell you because I was an organizer at the time, and I know from people who were like, great, all right, we got this person who comes from progressive circles, a Black person who understands our tradition and is studied in our tradition. Let's move the ball, right? He put in people like Rahm Emanuel, whose main job was to beat back the movement.
Mm.
Shut up, sit in your place.
Right. We
Don't
got it from here.
we got it. We got it.
Are
Thank
you a
you.
racist?
Right,
Do
right.
you
Are
want
you a
Trump to
racist? How
win?
dare you? Our nation's first Black president. How could you, right? And so the way that I liken it to, so I know Brandon. The way I liken it to Brandon is that, and this is any governing experiment for our movement. We need to learn, and I think there's some people. I'm pretty close to some people on the ground. There are some people that are doing the inside outside with Brandon's administration. But we as a movement need to master that. There's a role for the outside, there's a role for the inside. You know who's doing that pretty well? Trump and MAGA, right?
Yeah.
Right? Trump and MAGA is doing that well. And
Yeah.
I'm not one of those people who are like, oh, we need to do what they're doing. I'm saying we're the ones actually, like they learn from us. A lot of the things that they are trying to perfect on their side, after getting their asses handed to them, they were like, well, this whole movement thing that the left is doing, literally, like when you see some of the things that they're doing, they talk about, and some of these people, actually, some of them come from the left. Some of their parents are
Right.
from the left.
Right.
Some of them like traded in left spaces before they became far right or even fascist, right?
Right.
And so they're taking a page and trying to apply some of those lessons of how do I build a mass movement that's decentralized, that has an inside outside game, that is pushing the Overton window as far as possible, but then also like allowing folks in government to kind of do a version of that and like not sever the relationship.
Have
Right?
plausible deniability, etc. So speaking of the Joe Rogan of the left, when I talked to Hassan a couple of months ago, he talked about the fact that the left, the Democrats, because like
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know what that is at this point, because you have what's going on in New York, you have Bernie and AOC have problems, but they're not what Democrat feels like
Mm-hmm.
across the board, if that
Yep,
makes sense.
yep,
But whatever that particular apparatus is, it's ripe for a Tea Party adjacent movement, because the Tea Party, all that was is that well, it wasn't organic because I know the Koch brothers and whatever
yep.
else kind of funded it, but they got enough people to come out here and say, "Hey, this thing sucks."
Hmm.
No, the Republicans suck. Actually, they're not far right enough. And
Yes.
like, I think there are a lot of disaffected, disappointed, disengaged, liberals, progressives, whatever term you want to use, whichever one is least pejorative to you watching,
Right,
right?
right, right, right.
That you could very easily get a populist left movement,
Absolutely.
because that's where the people actually are. When you go and you look at the analysis, again, going back to critiques I've both gotten and responded to post-election, this wasn't about Palestine. This wasn't about trans people. This is about voters who felt uninspired.
Yes.
Now, I could call those voters certain things for
Hmm.
feeling like a Trump presidency is not a big deal to them.
Yep.
However, what it is what it is. And
Yes.
so I do know that those voters, history tells us those voters will be inspired by an actual working class based, populist movement.
Yes.
It's just that the Democratic Party feels so cooked and
Yeah.
so incapable of a lot of the things you kind of alluded to. There's the people that are really responsible for the situation we're in now have seen no consequences, no primaries, no opponents. They don't have what, like, the Tea Party took over the government for a couple of years. They didn't hold it for long because, except for Lauren Boebert, of course, like we can't get rid of her in Georgia. But like everyone else, it was pretty like, okay, that was cool and all. Let's get back to normal. We
Yep.
haven't even had that
No, no,
much
no.
at all.
And see the Democratic Party, my experience of it is that I mean all parties are disciplinary vehicles.
Mhm.
All parties around the world, Democrats, Republicans, but the Democratic Party has so mastered its levers of internal discipline that um, it comes at a huge cost for innovation, for internal democracy,
Mm.
for the type of churn that is necessary for a party to be able to reform itself and to be able to pivot as the time, place, and conditions change. And so what happened on the Republican side was messy. It was hard. There was a lot of contestation. That party got stronger because of it, right? Democrats have created this myth that challenging your own party or challenging the given wisdom of the party is a betrayal of that party, right? And um, it's a complete like fallacy, right? Because here we are with the Democrats are polling like in the 20s. Most people, if it's polling in the 20s, that means most people think the party sucks, including the people who vote for the party. Like that's what it means, right? Because you have a two-party system. So even people who are like, yeah, I'm voting for the Democrat, are like, oh yeah, and the Democratic Party sucks, right? So that to me suggests a huge opportunity, which why, I'm really trying to lean into this moment for a on on our side, on the like pro democracy side, for real contestation and struggle and debate out in the open,
Yeah.
right? And we can't be afraid of like calling the question. And that's why we at the Working Families Party, we love primaries. And because primaries allow for that to happen in a very structured way. And which is why a lot of the like elites in the Democratic Party are afraid of primaries because and it's like this whole thing of like, how dare you air our dirty laundry type of nonsense. It's just like, you need to, okay. I think,
Oh no.
I think of that
Right.
time,
Ah
but
no.
of that
But
time.
you were cooking. Cause so
Yes.
give me the last minute spiel and where they can at least get engaged. One thing I get a
Okay.
lot from people who are done with the Democrats is, okay, what else? And so I'm,
Yep.
I'm always trying to make sure
Yep.
I'm presenting that to people.
Listen, if you're tired of your party bosses, you know what I'm saying, dancing in the videos, come to WFP. And they could find us at workingfamilies.org. They could also text WFP to 30403. And if they want to run, we're recruiting 1,000 working class people to run on the local level, not Congress, but water board, fire board, city council,
Mm.
school board. Text run to 30403. And they could find me at all socials at Maurice WFP.
Dope, dope.
All right.
Sorry we had to cut it short.
Yeah, bro.
I'll be talking to you again. I got
Oh yeah.
I got a Obama autopsy video somewhere in the future, and
Let's do it.
yeah, that was a good. So yeah, we'll do it. Peace and blessings, man. Have a good one.
All right. Peace, brother.